What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum. Together we are Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is episode 33. We are going to conclude our interview with Joey Schultz from EDHRECast just as soon as we get through some official podcast business. First and foremost, of course, big thanks to FusionGamingOnline.com. They are the official sponsor of Commander Ad Populum, and you can find this show alongside Fusion Gaming's other sponsored content over on themanabase.com. Go there, check it out. Lots of good stuff going on over there. Huge thank you to the Patreon supporters, patreon.com/cadpopcast. Couldn't do it without you guys. If anybody out there listening does have the financial means to help the show grow, support the show, whatever it is, I would encourage you to head on over, check out the benefits, pick a support tier that is appropriate to you. I'd very much appreciate that. Other than that, we're getting a little bit close to the holiday season. I think this show is going to air sometime in the first half of December, so got my Christmas trees up, got the house decorated. We've got some Christmas parties coming up at my house for my wife's work and the CCO Dude Bros and what have you. So if you celebrate throughout the holidays, make sure you're thinking of other people in addition to yourself. I just wanted to throw that out there. Remember that in a lot of scenarios, there are people that are less fortunate than yourself. So if you do have the means or the financial stability, whatever it is, try and give something back. There are people who don't get presents. There are people who don't get food. There are people who do have less than you or me. So it's important to keep those people in your mind and do what we can to help the less fortunate, especially this time of year. So that all being said, let's get right back to the interview with Joey just after this.
I don't deny there's some strange evolutionary process going on, but mankind won't be destroyed. The fact that you and I are working here today is evidence of that.
What about within the Magic community? How do you feel about the general acceptance, either at a local game store, online, your online presence, or especially at big events? Like you were just at MagicFest Seattle a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah. And there, actually, I did have some folks come up to me, and they thanked me for being willing to be out on the podcast, which it was really flabbergasting to me, and it was just extremely touching. But I also want to cite, really one of the big reasons that I felt comfortable enough to do that at all is because of Erin Campbell from Magic Mike's and previously of the Girlfriend Bracket podcast. And she is a trans woman, and good Lord, that was so much inspiration for me to feel even brave enough in the first place to be out about this part of my identity. And so, yeah, I have experienced a lot of support from people within the Magic community. I know that that is not a universal answer. I'm here in Seattle. It's a bit of a haven for people. I have safe spaces for myself to be, and a lot of people may not have that. But it is something that I've been able to find in the Magic community, which is definitely remarkable.
Yeah, very much so. It truly is a great place. Let's get back to your family a little bit. I'm interested to know, first, I want to know, what would Golgari Dredge playing Joey all these years later say to Lightning Helix playing Joey? What would you say? What would you say to you now back then? What piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would tell, Lightning Helix Joey that in a short while, when the set called Future Sight comes out, you're going to play against this guy at FNM who's running this thing called Bridge from Below, and he's going to cast a spell for free called Dread Return from his graveyard, and it's going to trigger a bunch of Bridge from Below things from his own graveyard that he's filled to the brim by dredging a bunch of cards. And using that, he's going to bring back a Boros card, even though he is not playing mountains or plains in his deck, and it's going to create a bazillion zombies, and that Flamekin Zealot Boros card that he got back is going to give them all +1 in haste, and you're going to die on the spot, and you will never be happier than in that moment.
That's excellent. Okay, I got another Dredge question for you. I wasn't going to ask this, but it just popped into my mind. We talk on CCO frequently, or Brando and myself talk about, when you dredge this card, go to 1 life. Dredge 10. Do you play that card?
In Commander, probably not.
Dredge 10 in Commander?
That's a tough question. So here's the thing. Like I said, so I'm kind of what I call a bit of a cheaty face player. Like, I do obviously stick within the rules, but I am naturally drawn to commanders like Mimeoplasm or Keurig or Yannette, which all can cheat mana costs, and I just am so naturally drawn to that. But every time that I actually sometimes go whole hog and commit to one of those, like I built a Keurig deck, and I played one game with it, and I was like, no, people can't be allowed to do this. This is far too much. So if I'm committing whole hog, then a Dredge 10, you go to 1 life, yeah, I can totally make that work. But is that going to be fun for everyone else? I don't know. In Commander, I don't know. If I'm playing something like Vintage or Legacy, then, maybe people expect that a bit more. But in Commander, I'm not sure that people are going to enjoy watching me go whole hog like that, because every time that I've done that, it hasn't been great. I have to restrain myself just like a little bit, because I want to make sure that everyone else is having a good time with me too.
I'm just going to tell everybody you said yes.
That's fair.
You heard it here first, folks. Joseph Schultz. Dredge 10, yes. Okay, let's get back to your family for real this time. You said your mom, Mono Blue Voltron. Tell us quick about that.
Yeah, so she started on playing Mono Blue, but she has moved into, in the time since, she now plays a Voltron Blue-White, so that's Azorius, Dragon Lord Ojutai deck. So that's that dragon from, I think, Dragons of Tarkir or Fate Reforged. And it has hexproof as long as it's untapped. And then whenever it hits someone, you look at the top 3 cards and you can put 1 into your hand. So this is a thing that she puts a bunch of enchantments onto to basically completely grind people out with commander damage, especially if she gives it vigilance so that no one can ever touch it. And whenever she makes contact, whenever she hits somebody, she'll be able to look at the top 3 cards and pick a counterspell from among them. So she's got this amazing control strategy where she gets her one thing in play and then no one is allowed to touch it. And what's amazing to me, just when it comes to my family meta, is that this is the perfect foil for my stepdad's strategy, because he plays a black-white life gain deck with Karlov of the Ghost Council, which, gains you a bunch of life, puts counters on it, can use those counters to exile a creature of his choice. So it becomes this amazing push and pull between the two of them, where he's trying to gain a bunch of life, but the commander damage doesn't really care how much life he has. But if he's able to tap one of her creatures, then he'll be able to target it to get rid of it with the Karlov ability. So it is this amazing interplay between them, and it really helps dictate the pace of a lot of the games that we play, because they're constantly at loggerheads with each other.
Yeah, your mom metas your stepdad?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, do they have to swap deck lists before the game so they can make sure they're do they sideboard against each other?
No, nothing like that. But it is really fun to see that they kind of keep each other in check. And that forces us, when us kids are playing with our parents, it does force us to sort of be aware that hey, I might have the opportunity to kill mom right now, but she's sort of the perfect answer for Gary's 150 life over there. So maybe we should keep her around, because she's the only one who can do a good job of actually taking him off of the high horse there. So it becomes really, really fun. And it's kind of interesting too. My parents don't just play with us kids now. They also occasionally play against each other to decide who has to do the chores. I had the good fortune of...
No way.
Yeah, I had the good fortune of chatting with Gavin Duggan of the Rules Committee at the Commander Party in the Seattle Command Fest. And I mentioned to him that my mom and my stepdad play against each other to see who has to give the other foot rub, or who has to take out the trash or something like that. And Gavin responded, I can think of no single thing that would escalate the power level of my decks than exactly that scenario. We're dueling to see who does the dishes. Boom, I'm playing Power 9 in my deck.
100%. Well, and here's the other thing though. You were telling me about this the other day, and I was like, well, what if somebody backstabs the other one? What if your stepdad backstabs your mom? Does he have to sleep on the couch?
So that's just it. That's another thing why empathy is such an important component to our games. And a family, man, you are held accountable. The entire family unit is holding you accountable in ways beyond just the game right here. You don't have the option to pub stomp someone or betray. The first time that I played a Micaeus and Triskelion combo, because I was naturally drawn to something that was that obnoxiously powerful, I saw the rest of my family's faces fall, and I was just like, oh no. And I was forced in those moments to be empathetic, because I was literally trying to play Yidris Storm against my mom. I'm not going to play Mono Black Keurig against my mom and then explain to her how much of a scumbag I am. Absolutely not. So yeah, it does keep you accountable to that group, because you don't have the option to be a little scumbaggy sometimes like that. You don't have the option to put the win within the game ahead of the emotions of other people. And you really never should do that, but having a family unit really helps reinforce that.
Yeah, that's the same can be said probably to a little bit lesser extent with a very tight-knit group of friends, or like when I play on Tuesday nights, I've been playing with the same guys since like 2007 or 8, like for more than 10 years. None of us had kids. Now a couple of us have kids that are like double digits old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. I think you might have just named the episode Yidris Storm Against My Mom. Could be a thing, right?
It only happened once and I felt terrible.
Well, that means you're not a terrible person, and you know what? I appreciate that.
I appreciate you validating me there, but I don't know. I still did it. I did it one time, so.
Well, and you know what? You kind of answered one of my next questions was, okay, so when Joey Schultz shows up, like editor for EDHREC Incarnate Podcast Extraordinaire, do you just you trounce them? But no, you have a good time. You make sure that everybody's expectations are met. You have a fun game full of dialogue and politics and back and forth and equal power level decks. What way do you set that up with people that you know better than any other people out there? Like, there's all this talk on content, podcasts, articles, whatever it is. This is how you have the conversation. This is a good way to judge the power level of your deck when you're sitting down with 3 other random people. How does that go when you know the people?
When you know the people, it's so much easier, especially, historically they've seen the kind of stuff that, we're all up to. And largely that meta isn't necessarily changing too much. We're not building too many new decks within each of those. They've been sticking with the decks that they have known and loved for literally years. Against other people, my co-hosts on the EDHRECast have really come up with what I consider one of the best solutions that I've ever tried when you're trying to discuss what the power level might be or how the game is going to play out. And you want to avoid, any accidental pub stomping or accidentally playing something that's too powerful and the rest of the table has, not a good time. One of the things that Dana and Matt have sort of mentioned is that when they have a conversation about power level, they don't just, pick a random number or even a number that they think might be true, but, everyone's level of scale, like on a 7 or an 8, that, my 8 might be different than your 8. Or in a recent episode of your own CCO podcast, I'm pretty sure you've mentioned that sort of everyone defaults to saying that their power level is sort of a 7, which might be true, but again, everyone's scale of what 7 means is going to be a little bit different. So the solution that Dana and Matt have talked about a bit is not just providing a number, and not even just saying, oh, this deck is optimized or something like that, but also sort of including a bit more description about maybe specific cards within the deck or specific strategies, or even an expectation of, it could probably, ideally, if I had the God hand, it could win by this turn or something like that. So giving those extra bits of details doesn't necessarily give away the entire gambit. You're not, telling them, here's my exact strategy, this is how you'll be able to defeat me. But a little bit of extra detail goes a really long way to help make sure that you're giving a proper expectation for what people will see within the scope of the game.
Yeah, I run 4 tutors, or you know what I'm playing? I'm playing 3 really fast mana rocks. Like I got Sol Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, or whatever it is, right? Like just that little bit of info saying, yeah, probably you can look at me getting my Nicol Bolas on turn 5, not turn 7 or 8. Yeah, just a little bit of extra detail. It really does help out. That has been pretty instrumental for me when I'm having discussions with some random players and I'm just sitting down and I want to get a good game in. Just a little bit of extra, naming a few cards that might be in the deck, just to help other folks get a sense of what might be going on there. There's a place where we as Magic players feel like, oh no, we're giving away information. But it's so much more important to have a 3-second conversation at the beginning of the game to make sure that you have an hour-long game that is really awesome, rather than not having that conversation and then you have a 15-minute game that wasn't very much fun at all. Yeah, and you know what? As humans, a lot of the time we fixate on that 15-minute game that happened, 4 or 5 hours ago that ruined, and we let that ruin our whole day. We let 15 minutes ruin our whole day, and if that can be prevented with the 30-second conversation to maybe have it make our whole day or our whole weekend, it's so worth it, even if you kind of, like you say, do have to give away a little bit of information with the, I'm playing Demonic Tutor, Grim Monoliths in the deck, just so I can kill you with Infect on turn 4 with a God hand, but mostly I'm just trying to do jank stuff out of my graveyard.
Right. really, like, that's also another important point there. Like, this is sort of the case for empathy. I don't know. My folks are teachers. Their job literally requires empathizing with kids who are still learning how to navigate the world so that they can best impart lessons to those kids in a way that those kids will understand. And that really means that empathy is one of the most important aspects of their job, but it's also one of the most important strategic elements in Magic, too. You're not using empathy as a way to give away value or to announce other folks what you're doing, and then you've lost a little bit of extra stuff that could have, gotten you an edge in the game. Empathy is one of the most important components you can have when playing a game, because you need to see the game through someone else's eyes to see why they're doing what they're doing, so that you can then beat them by having preempted or guessed correctly what they're up to as well. So if you are practicing empathy in that way, then it becomes one of your best assets to win the game too, because you're able to see what your opponent is up to and how they're feeling in that moment, so that you can then wrest victory out of their hands.
Yeah, strategic empathy. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. And you know what? I'm going to give the short, like, really blue collar answer to empathy. Like, when I think of it in my head, when I've had that bad 15-minute game because somebody wasn't upfront with me, it's be more empathetic because you wasted my time, right? And then you move on, of course. Then you move on. You don't let the 15 minutes wreck your day, but then you move on.
Well, and that's just it. Like, sometimes we do come into conflict with the player personality who really wants to win sort of at all costs. And I do want to do some small part, I guess, to destigmatize the idea that wanting to win or to be competitive in this primarily social game is in any way bad. Like, I'm not a competitive player, but I am a player who enjoys winning, and I'm especially a player who wants to be challenged so that I can grow. Pub stompers are not wholly there to derive enjoyment just from winning. They're kind of searching for something that will challenge them in the ways that will help them grow. But the situation, that you can sometimes get into when that power level conversation doesn't happen, that situation can sometimes be so fraught that it makes all parties feel sour. But like, I want to be empathetic towards the folks that maybe are a little bit too powerful as well. They are searching for something that is also very valid within the game too. Yeah,
and at Command Fests and at MagicFest moving forward, where there are commander areas, there is that spectrum of deck tunedness. I don't want to call it competition, because you could play jank and it could still be competitive if everybody really wants to win. But how tuned or powerful your deck is, there is that spectrum now that we're going to be able to see and seek out and find people that have similar interests in game to us. Do you have, speaking of MagicFest, I don't know if you have any plans for upcoming MagicFest in 2020 yet. I don't know if there's any plans to be anywhere.
I don't know specifically, but I can definitely say that I am planning on attending. I think that the Command Fest was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had at any event playing Magic, and I am excited to see how they develop, and I am excited to be at the next one. Whenever that is, I'm not sure when or where it might be, but I definitely have intentions of appearing at them.
Could you commit to MagicFest Seattle?
I don't know. Could I walk the entire 3 blocks to show up at I'll think about it.
Better check the schedule is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Well, if you are there, I would love to get a game in, because we at MagicFest Las Vegas in August didn't actually even get to play a game together, did we?
No, we didn't. It was really nice meeting you and Brando. It was really awesome meeting a bunch of folks from the community there, but we didn't get a chance to play a game, and I got to see you play, but then we just always each got caught up in something else, which was just, a little unfortunate. I do have the Altar of the Molderine Reclamation that Dana had you commissioned for me, which was really, really wonderful. Guys, his work is really good. You should get Altars by Ryan. It's really good work. But yeah, I never actually got the chance to play against you, sort of as to defeat you as a way of saying thank you for that. So,
yeah, okay. I like the trash talk. Were you there for the Vegas Rotisserie event? You were there. Are you going to partake in any kind of charity events or anything like that with us next year?
If it's setting up, I'm certainly interested.
It's not yet, but I imagine.
Time will tell.
Yeah, I imagine we're going to be doing something similar. I sort of loosely kind of committed to another graveyard type strategy to Max Crandell a couple weeks ago. and I said, I don't care. I will play right through Bojuka Bogs and Grafdigger's Cages solely just to Twilight's call somebody to death. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't know if you saw the exact instance that I Twilight's called when there was a Grafdigger's Cage, but...
I was there for that, yes. It was delightful to watch you suffer. I'm sorry.
Were you empathizing with me? You weren't.
Yes? Question mark?
No, you weren't.
I don't know. The really conceited part of my brain is just like, well, I would never have made a mistake like that. But let's be real, we all do. So.
Oh, man. It's not even like he was sitting kitty corner to me either. No, it was right beside me.
It was pretty funny. But I appreciate exactly, first of all, I appreciate the way that you handled it in that situation, because you called yourself out on the mistake, which was really wonderful, and you committed to it.
Just slumped into a different dimension, man. I slumped down to my chair and I pulled my hat down over my eyes and I was like, how am I going to win this game?
Well,
what am I going to do?
But the philosophy that you mentioned, you play on right through the hate, like that is true in a game of Magic. That's true in a game of life. That's just a good philosophy to have. So yeah, if someone's Bojuka Bogging and someone's Scavenger Grounding and someone's Grafdigger's Caging, you keep on going on. I play way too much Graveyard to not have learned that lesson by now. So that is the correct philosophy on how to handle it.
Ooh, another potential show title, Lessons from Graveyard Players. Play through the bogs. Play through the Nihil spell bombs.
Yeah, I guess it could be. We have a lot of dangerous things to teach people too, so you want to watch out on that.
Yeah. I mean, dude, whatever danger. I mean, whatever. That's what like Rift Sweeper's for. You get it back from exile, right? That's how it works. That's how graveyard decks work, everybody. Well, with that, I would love to thank you. I would love to have you on again. I think that there's actually so much more things that we could talk about, whether it be Magic families, our backstory, your little tiny corgi that I know that you have somewhere in the apartment because I could hear it. Give everybody the quick rundown where they can find you, your articles, your Twitter. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, do it all right now.
Yeah, you can find my personal Twitter at Joseph M. Schultz, but you can find the article content on EDHREC proper. I do have my articles there, the Commander Showdown series, which are a lot of fun. I'm pitting two commanders that have similar abilities against each other to see how they differ and where they overlap. Most importantly, you can follow the cast at EDHRECast on Twitter. We put out weekly episodes every Friday that give a bit more extra context to the data that is provided on EDHREC to help people get better recommendations for the cards that they can play.
Very excellent. I listen to EDHRECast every week. It's great. I love it. I love the dad jokes especially. I love whatever Dana does at the start. I'm going to call it a joke, but it's not a dad joke. I don't know what he calls it.
Matt has the running gig of opening with a dad joke. Dana kind of makes a magic-related joke, like saying, oh no, I've turned into a 3/3 elk or something like that.
Yeah, like some kind of pun. I like it. I like that everybody's kind of got their own personality right at the start.
Yeah, it's definitely good folks at EDHREC, and it's been a real treat to be able to work with them.
And I love the stats. I know that stats make terrible radio, but you know what? If you just did like EDHREC stats and it was just like you shouting numbers into a microphone for like an hour, I would sign up.
Yeah, well, so there's so much data on EDHREC and so many different lenses to use when you look at it, and also not all of it's necessarily correct. We challenge the stats all the time. That's one of our weekly segments where we say, hey, I think that this card is seeing too much play, or hey, I think this card is seeing too little play. We don't want to just blindly follow numbers. We want to give people good recommendations too, and not just take advice ad populum necessarily. So it's, Commander ad populum, I guess.
Got there.
Sorry, I don't mean for it to...
That's all good.
Technically, though, your podcast is named after a logical fallacy, so I guess I just kind of had to mention it. But yeah, we don't want to just give people advice blindly. We want to put a bit more thought into the numbers.
That's right. Well, I would very much like to have you on again to talk about EDHREC and anything that you want to talk about. So just say the word. We'll set it up. Maybe we'll get Dana on. I know I was setting up some plans with him. I'd love to have Matt on because I've never met him because he never comes to events.
I know. We need to get him at one of these. And I'm very glad that you would like to have me back on the show because I did just kind of insult the name of your podcast. I'm sorry. I appreciate
you know what? I know that it's a logical fallacy. I also know that it is Latin for the people.
Yeah.
So there is some punnage there. Me and Dana, we like them, and Matt, I guess we like them dad jokes, dad puns. Maybe that's why I like EDHRECast so much.
Yeah, there are logical fallacies to be had when you take advice just from the people, maybe, but the people is also really what it's all about. Like, we're here for the gathering part of Magic the Gathering.
And that's it, everybody. That is Joey Schultz from EDHRECast. Again, Joey, because I know he listens, I super appreciate you coming on and spending your time away from your husband and your house and your ongoings and all the things that you do in the evening. Joey and I, after the interview, already decided that he is going to be back and we are going to do some crossover material in the future, because him and I both have a lot to say about magic and life, and we share a similar opinion on many things. And I am a stats guy, stats junkie. It is real life. I would just listen to the Joey Schultzes and the Don Miners and the Dana Roaches and the Matt Morgans of the world just talk about the statistics on EDHREC, just like numbers into a microphone. I would listen to that because I'm kind of a numbers geek for Magic like that. So plenty that I could pick Joey's brain on. If anybody's interested in anything like that, let me know. Maybe Joey and I can set something up, or maybe I can come up with some of my own Magic the Gathering or Commander statistics. If anybody's into that, let me know. You can let me know in the comments thread on the Commander Ad Populum Facebook page, or of course CAD Popcast on Twitter. There are threads for every episode there for you to comment on, and I do see all of those. Of course, you can send me a message on the Patreon messenger service, patreon.com/CADPopcast. Plenty of good benefits there, including the Discord. You can message me there too. Big thank you to the patrons, of course, couldn't do it without you. Big thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com for all of you and your family's holiday needs. Very much appreciate that support, everybody. And that's it. I'll be back next week, everybody. See you next Wednesday.